Hello, everybody, and welcome back to At the Table with Tom Pod. I'm your host, Tom Podgorski, and I'll be guiding you through each episode. I believe that each of us can have a positive impact in the world through kindness, listening to others, and staying empowered through learning. And that gives us opportunities to create change. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and settle in with us as we chat at the table. Today, it is my privilege to welcome Mr. James Harris to our show as our guest. A little bit of history here. I've known James since high school, going back a few years. He's one grade younger in school, and we've reconnected here in a more formal way the last 3 or 4 years. So, James, welcome to our show. It's our privilege to have you on, and I'm going to introduce you to the audience here in terms of some of your accomplishments and things like that. So, I'd like to formally welcome you, James.
Thank you for having me. I know I made it because I'm at the table with Tom Pod. I'm really excited, so let's get it.
We will, James, we will. And we have so much fun together when we just sit and have coffee. So I know this is going to be a great time, and I'm sure our listening audience is really going to enjoy this. But I want to kind of brag about James a little bit here before we get started, because he has way too much humility. He won't mention any of this stuff. But I think it's important for you to know this. So I've known James, like I said, since high school. Now, for most of us, we would settle for just being a one-sport star. But no, James was actually a 3-sport star. He was the all-league starting quarterback for the football team. He was on the basketball team that went to 2 back-to-back CIF championship games. And he was a star track athlete where he made it to the California Masters meet in the 400 meters. So a lot of pedigree there, and he was a likable guy in high school. You know, usually you get some of these people that are star athletes and they may have a little bit of an attitude, but not James. Always walked around with a smile on his face, and he's continued to be that humble person his whole life. Educationally, has a BA in business, and he also has a JD degree. James is also a published author of Corey's Courtroom and Natalie's Newscast, and those are children's book series, and he's presented all over the place, different venues, and been interviewed about his books. So, yes, he's a published author. Career-wise, James spent his career in the Department of Corrections, where he was a counselor, and has a lot of interesting stories and experiences from that. Married for 34 years. I hear you just recently celebrated an anniversary. Is that correct?
I did. Thank you. 34.
You betcha. That was quite an accomplishment. He has grown children. And also, James is very involved in his community out here in the Inland Empire. He's a community organizer. Just recently organized some big events out there, which we'll get into later. He's a former library commissioner for the city of Moreno Valley. He's an in-demand speaker, and he's an event host. So, James, welcome to our show today. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Tom. I'm really happy to be here today.
I'm going to start off with, I'm not going to let you off the hook, James. I'm going to start off with a heavy question right off the bat, all right?
I'm ready.
I think that based on your background, this is a very appropriate question. So, here's the question, James. It does appear that you have this diverse and well-balanced background. Could you tell us about your personal and professional journey and how that background that you started with even from childhood and through high school and college, how that has influenced your development and brought you to the place where you are now?
That's a really good question. Thank you for asking me. You know, what I've done in the present and in the past, it really all grew out of community. And the question is, well, where's community? Well, I grew up in Riverside, California, on the east side, went to John David North High School, go Huskies. And everything I saw when I was growing up was about helping others. Because during that time, we didn't have a whole lot of resources. Everyone was kind of just trying to make it. But the people that were in place during those times, and I'm going to give us a few names from our high school and from our neighborhood, like Dale Roberts. He actually was a mentor over at Poly, but he mentored everybody in Riverside. Rucker Hughes, Miss Rucker Hughes. She was also a mentor. And so what I learned when I was growing up in the East Side was that you really didn't need to have money or title to make a difference in people's life. What you really needed to do was just be present and show up. And so all that was poured into me when I was growing up doing the community. And there were a lot of different, aspects of the community. There were folks writing newspapers and doing all kind of different things, kind of speaking to you. So as I grew up, I always felt like I needed to give something back because I was just a little kid in elementary school, junior high school, but I seen the possibilities of what I could actually be and actually do. So then all of a sudden now my interests start to grow. So when I was in elementary school, believe it or not, I went on a field trip. Remember back in the day, you used to have field trips? I went to a field trip down at the Riverside Courthouse. And for there, I said, you know what? I want to be a lawyer. I want to go to law school. And that's brought that interest. So that kind of grew up. Okay, so now I'm kind of going up doing that thing. And I'm in high school and I'm seeing all the different activities. And I'm like, you know what? The Lord has blessed me with a lot of gifts. We all have gifts. And so I said, okay, how can I make these gifts help other people? Because I know how other people's gifts have helped me. So everything that you're seeing me doing now is just really a combination of what folks have poured into me that I want to now give back. And so people are always asking me, well, James, you do a lot of things. You're a library commissioner, you're an author, you put on events, you do presentations, Black History presentations. Not only where to get the time, but how do you know what your passion is? I get that question a lot, like what's your passion and what's your gifts? And so I look at it this way. Like they ask me, like, what is your gift? Because we all have gifts, right, Tom?
Yes.
Your gift is what do you do the best with the least amount of effort? If you do that, then everything will come flowing to you. Because people are out there looking for, I don't know what to do. Well, you can always get involved. Just whatever you do with the least amount of effort, you put that into the community. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was doing some work at the presentations at the Senior Center in Reno Valley. Okay. And so I was just doing Black History presentations, doing all kinds of different things like that. And I was doing it for free just because it's passing time and those things I like to do. Well, in 2021, the city of Reno Valley asked the Senior Center, do you have anybody you think that may be good to help with the very first Juneteenth celebration in Reno Valley? But yeah, we have somebody here that's been doing like presentations down here. I think he may be good. Why don't you give me a try? Okay. So city called me up and we had an interview. And so I ended up being the event host and MC for the first Juneteenth in Reno Valley, right? I did it, believe it or not, I did it for free because I just like doing it. I'm on stage, I'm talking to people, I'm social, having a good time, whole 9 yards. Well, that turned into now I'm contracted under them for Juneteenth and Color Run, 4th of July, and all these different events. Well, my point is that came out of me just doing what I like to do for passion. So you always hear the cliche that if you do something that you love, you won't work a day in your life, and all that is really true. So if you can identify your passion, then you can identify what you're good at, and everything will come to you. So all these things that you see me doing now in the community, it's just because I have a passion, and I'm not trying to check a box. I'm just trying to be there to help other folks that were like me one time looking up and saying, hey, can I do that? So I really want to be like a representative. So if you can see somebody representative like you, then, you can kind of dream it.
Yeah. James, something you said really caught my attention. Well, a lot of this has. And I think for just the average person listening right now, your statement about your passions and your gifts, and if it's something that you have a heart for already, you're going to find a way to express that somehow.
That's correct.
But also what I hear you saying is doing positive things that you're passionate about can lead you to other opportunities to give, not just give back, but give forward.
Yeah, I have a motto that I kind of go by. It's called bloom where you're planted.
I like it.
So no matter where you're at, you can bloom wherever you're planted. When I grew up in Riverside, I tried to bloom there. Now I live in Reno Valley, I try to bloom there. And also one of my little mottos I kind of go by is wherever that you're at, bring value to that room. And that's literally and metaphorically, right? So literally, if you walk into your home or you walk into your school, wherever you're at, try to bring value to that room. Try to make a positive impact to it. More metaphorically, you thinking of like your city or your state or your country. That could be your room too.
Right.
But wherever you're at, you want to bring value to that. So when you come in, that room has value more because you're there.
What's interesting about that statement about bringing value, in the past I've thought about this in my younger days, but I hear people discussing this all the time. One of the things I do is I help people retire, but one of the questions that comes up invariably is I ask them what they're going to do in the next phase, and they struggle with that question. They want to make a difference, but they don't know how to do it. But I think what you did in your last couple statements about blooming where you're planted and bringing value to the place where you're at is you don't have to really look any further than where you're at. Where can you plug in? And going back to your previous statement about passion and gifts, where can you plug in and use your passion and gifts where you are right now?
That's right.
Love it, James. Absolutely love it.
Because, the biggest thing is, I think that stunts people, that you need a title or you need a lot of money. And that's not necessarily so. Yes, it's always good to have those things. Obviously, you need to have some education. You want to pursue some of the things that you want to pursue. But the truth of the matter is you just need to show up. That's your first step. If you can show up and be present and allow people to say that you have a willing spirit to try to put some good someplace else, everything else will kind of flow. And it's not a drudgery. And so when you ask that question, you're right, because a lot of folks haven't thought about, okay, like what's next? Well, don't put so much pressure on you, like what's next? Kind of think, what would I like to do next? One of the things I did when I was working in the Department of Corrections, I worked there for 30 years, and so, I'm behind the desk, right? And everybody says the same thing when they want to retire. Or when we're at their desk, they say this: if I wasn't working today, I'd be doing A, B, C, and D, right? If I was working today, I'd be doing that. Well, for me, I said, okay, when I retire, I want to fill in that blank. So that's why I became a children's author. That's why I started doing community service. That's why I started being an event host. So all these things that you see me doing now, I was thinking about, if I wasn't working right now on this Tuesday, I'd be. And so I employed everybody. If you're kind of struggling with what you're going to do next, think about those things that when you're at that desk that said, if I wasn't here, what would I be doing? And just fill in your own blank. And then that will help you get started to finding your passion and some of the things that you really like. Because when you're working, a lot of times you're so caught up in daily grind, family, career, everything, you don't have time to tap into what you really like to do. So I have people always tell me all the time, well, when you're working, James, I didn't know that you wanted to write, be a children's author. I didn't know you wanted to be on stage. I said, we see you on stage and all these different things and community organizing. We never knew that. Well, that's because you see me in this setting. But now that I'm retired, I can actually pursue those things that I always want to do. And my real passions come out.
So, James, as I'm listening to you, I'm getting a lot here in between. I like the subtlety of it as well, but I'm hearing you talk about three things. One, that life is a series of phases and cycles, that during this phase, I call it the acquisition phase, where you're building up yourself, and you may not even realize it at the time, but you're building yourself so that later on, you can leverage that education. You can leverage that work experience. Everything you learned at work, the organization, the working with people, you can leverage that, the phase that comes later, kind of like we're at right now. The other thing I hear, and I'm sure our listening audience hears this as well, is there is a spirit of not just a passion in using gifts, but this willingness to sacrifice for other people. Where does that come from, James?
Ooh, that's a good question. Two things. One, I never take myself too seriously, and it's really about other people, because what I've learned is that the more you really feed other people and pour into other people, the more you're going to get back. And it fulfills me to help somebody else along their journey. So if I can help somebody, and it doesn't matter the age group, If I have anything that can help you be a better you somewhere down the line, something that you haven't seen, a different perspective, a different thought, a different vision, I'm here for it. And so that's where it comes from me. So when you grow up in the community, what you see is a lot of different aspects of a lot of different shades of people. And so you kind of take a little bit from everybody and say, okay, how can we all eat at the table? How can we all come together and benefit from this? So whatever gifts I have, I never thought about, I just want to keep it to myself, because then you can really lose them. So whatever I want to do for the community, I always think, how can this benefit the community, my family, or somebody else?
And as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking back to when we were in high school. And were these seeds being planted even then?
I think it was, but I didn't know it.
Right.
I didn't know it. Back in high school, in North, there was the Hill. That's where all the jocks and all the cool people hung out at. Okay. Well, in 11th grade year, there was a picture taken me in the yearbook and me standing on the hill, kind of like looking out, right?
I know that hill.
So when I looked at that picture, I always thought I was looking at my future, looking towards my future, what was next. And I never knew it, but I tried not to, which was hard, not to put too much pressure on it. But I think if I would have, now talking to that James back then, I would have really just told myself, okay, James, you're going to be okay. This is going to turn out all right. Just keep on doing what you're doing. But so my thought is just, if I can help you, let me do that. Let me try, because I have some experiences and some gifts and thoughts I think that may benefit everybody.
I also hear in what you're saying, because I'm sitting here with you and I can see the passion in your face here as very expressive and just your contagious enthusiasm. But I sense that you get a lot of fulfillment out of doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and I don't think you can do what you do, or anybody do what they do, without it. If I didn't feel like I was making a difference, or my soul wasn't being fed somewhere down the line, for humanity, for people, for children, then I don't think it would come off very authentic or genuine, because then you're just, once again, you're just checking a box. I'm not trying to check a box. I'm trying to just check that I'm doing the right thing by everybody involved, because it's not just me. I live in a community, so how can it be just me? One of the things I had said, I always kind of talk about, is that if you're the only crayon in the box, then you're in the wrong box.
I love it.
And so I try to make sure that whatever I do is the diversity's there, because I learned so much from so many different people and their races, their religions, their thoughts, their backgrounds that I've never heard of in the world. And I just like being brought into that. So it would be a disservice to me and everybody else if I just kept all my experiences to myself,
right,
and didn't even listen to your experiences. And how can we ever even come to any type of understanding or misunderstanding just of how our lives are if we never even, come together?
So it's almost like recognizing that in terms of a life quilt or a community quilt or a nation's quilt.
That's good.
That there are a lot of different threads through there that make that quilt strong. And those threads aren't all the same color, literally or figuratively, but they make that quilt much stronger.
Yes, they do. They're not the same color, they're not the same size, they're not the same thickness, but the one thing they do have, they're all consistent with each other, and they all work together. Everybody has their part, and no one, using the quilt analogy, no one piece is better or bigger than the other one. Because they all have a common goal. And what's the common goal? To make one, I sound kind of corny, to make one perfect quilt or make one perfect union. That's really the goal.
Right. Absolutely. So, James, as we move on in our interview, what would you say you're most proud of in your life?
I think I'm most proud of being married for 34 years to my wife. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of my children, my grown children. My daughter, Lauren, she's a commercial pilot. And my son, Trey, he's a third. He does sign language for the colleges and companies. And I think I'm most proud of my wife, Mary, but also my community involvement. That makes me proud because as you get older, especially for men, we think about legacy.
Yes.
We think about legacy and what are people going to say after we're gone. And so one of the things I want people to say is, he didn't have to be the richest. He didn't have to be the most talented, whatever. But what he did was he did have a heart for people, and he did try to put that on display and help somebody else down the line.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of enough for me.
Yeah.
That's enough for me.
Wow. Pretty profound statement. And James, I'm going to say, to get there to that place, you have to be selfless. It's almost like we're working ourselves over our lives out of our own egos, aren't we? To that place of service and passion and being selfless. And it's kind of a lifetime job or a lifetime task, I think. But I hear that so much in what you say. Something really interesting struck me as you were talking about your family. And this goes back to how I see life as a series of phases. And given what you're doing now versus raising a family and being married. So what I got out of that, and I'm going to let you just run with this, with whatever direction you want to go in. But what I got out of that was it's sort of the old saying, there's a season for everything under the sun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in the parenting mode and the marriage mode, and those things go together mostly, that is your focus during that phase of your life. Not that you can't do some other things well, of course,
Right.
and you can't do them well, but that's where you are in that phase of life. So what I wanted to ask you was, how would you encourage people, males or females, young or old, single or married, how would you encourage them about that season of life? Because sometimes people feel like they're stuck in this thing. And I'm going to go back to your statement about showing up and having a willing spirit and blooming where you're planted. Would you say that those things apply to raising children as well? Because, I've raised children, and people get into those routines where they feel like they're not making a difference and they're stuck. But what's your view on that?
That's a good question. What I did was I always prioritized what was really truly important. I looked at the short term and the long term. A lot of times I would have every 5 years I'd reassess where I'm at.
Yeah.
Every 5 years. So for my family, right? Okay, let's talk about my family. Okay, my kids are in their single digits. All right, folks. So from this age until they were probably, 18. Okay, I was James the father. I'm James the husband. I'm doing those things. Well, then when they started transitioning, I started transitioning as well. I was still James the father, but now I'm James the father, and maybe with some grown kids, that I'm still married. Okay, now I'm transitioning. Then I transitioned from there, from James married to James empty nester. So each phase, I never looked at it as being stuck. I look at it as I had to prioritize that phase in order to get to the next phase. Because what happens is that people try to skip. You try to skip because the rules in one phase of your life really doesn't fit the rules in another part of your life. And so I think you need to be cognizant of that and think that, okay, I am married with kids, Al Bundy, married with children. I'm married with children. So how can I maximize? How can I maximize this? How can I make this the best it could be? Okay, so that's what I'm saying. You being present, you being there, you being focused to making sure that part of your life is the best it can be. And then that's going to move on. Your kids going to get grown. You're going to move on in your life. You're going to get promotions. Things are going to change your life. Your body's going to change everything. So I just say prioritize where you're at. Really enjoy it, because it's really only for a short time. It really is. And even if you're going through some struggles, if you're not going through some struggles, then you're not doing it right. Because those struggles are that's going to define you and help you understand later. Because now I'm looking back at life as opposed to when I was younger looking up at life. And so I can look back at life and give some life experiences and some type of advice, but I couldn't do that if I didn't go through any struggles.
Mm.
If I was just simply just, sailing through life with no drama.
So it's almost like those struggles prepare you for the challenges and overcoming those struggles. They don't just happen and then you're over it. They don't return void. Once you've gone through that, it's like you have those sacred scars. You have that deposited into your account, and those things can come back and help you later. They give you grit and determination and qualities like that. I like what you said about having a life plan and viewing life changing as life changes, transitioning and reevaluating every 5 years. I thought that was really some good, wise counsel that you offered.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, I just try to really, and I also try to be realistic with myself in terms of where I'm at in my life. There's some things I can't do now that I could do back in the day. But that's something I do better now than I do.
Amen to that, by the way.
So just being realistic with where you're at and being okay with that.
Yes.
Being okay with that, Janine. Yeah.
I understand you've got some projects in the works right now, and as I've gotten to know, reacquainted with you the last 3 years and just hearing about your life, I'm amazed at how many irons you have in different fires. And so I think our audience might be curious to hear what sorts of projects you're working on right now.
Well, currently in November, I'm going to be doing MC host for Mineral Valley's, I think it's the 4th annual Color Run. You get the chance, come out, friends and family. I think it's November 11th. Come out, November 15th, I believe. You can check that. And come out and have a good time. But also, my brand is called Unveiled History and Focus. And what I do there is that I highlight and kind of showcase phenomenal African Americans that you probably haven't heard of before. And so this one in December at the Mineral Valley Main Library is going to be on Doris Miller. They call him Dory Miller.
Yes.
He was the World War II hero cook that came up and shot down Indian planes when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. So I'm really looking forward to that. So coming out, and we have a good time. It's fun, it's educational, and we just have a good time learning about something that you probably haven't heard about.
Yeah. And James, I'll say that when we became Facebook friends again, I don't know, it's been some time now, but I'm going to share that through your Unveiled projects and focus, I actually myself have learned, and I was an educator. I've learned a lot about folks that have kind of been glossed over in our history, that were heroes or heroines or made significant contributions to our society and culture in one way or another. So I'm so glad you're continuing with that. You and I were talking about some of the things you're going to be focusing on in that endeavor.
Yeah.
I'm a cyclist, so we were talking about a focus on Major Taylor, who was one of the greatest cyclists in the world back in like 100 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about that. I'm really excited that you're going to continue that because it's been very educational for me, and I'm sure a lot of other folks. How can they tap into that directly? Just through your Facebook, or what other ways can they access that?
You can access that on my Facebook, just James Harris. You can see that. Or my Instagram is JO_EMCEEMC, JO_MC.
Yes.
And I'll post it there. And we would love to have you out. Anybody coming out, love to have you come out, Tom.
Yes.
And so, yeah, we'll have a good time, and we'll learn more about all these different phenomenal folks.
Absolutely. So love the work, James. Love the work. And that's what kind of connected us back when I started reading about who you were focusing on. And admittedly, I had to say to myself, I never knew. And so I'm glad that you took up that.
Thank you.
That mantle there, my friend.
I appreciate that.
I understand that you've recently been nominated for a prestigious award. Could you share a little bit about that?
I have. For my community service, I've been nominated for the 2025 J.P. Morgan Icon Community Service Award. I'm really excited about that. I'm so thankful that they even recognize me in that manner, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I think that when you're doing the good work, people notice it and they recognize it, and these kinds of awards and recognitions. Not that you seek it, but I think it's a byproduct of the good work you do,
Oh,
James.
thank you. Thank you.
In this society that we live in, James, it's kind of crazy because we were just talking about the life quilt of humanity, and yet there seems to be a lot of disagreement about putting that quilt together. You know what I mean? But in a general sense, what would you say is your hope for our communities? And because a nation is made up of obviously states and communities and neighborhoods, but what's your hope for our communities and broader nation? What do you think it will take to bring us together?
That's a good question because it's really kind of complex. But I always like to start very simply. How do I treat you?
Yes.
No, let's start with that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't mind us having disagreements, or because that helps me to learn. That helps me see a different perspective. But a lot of times when I have disagreement with somebody, or we see things from different perspective, the one thing I always try to tell them this time is that, you know what? I'm not your enemy.
Yes.
I may not believe what you believe, but down deep, I am not your enemy. And maybe you can teach me something that I don't know. But I think if you're always so defensive of learning anything else about anybody else, about why I think the way I think, then that's where I think the disconnects come from, because now we're not trying to learn.
Right.
And I've learned so much from different people on both sides of the aisle, different nationalities, different religions, different languages, just because I'm just willing to tell them, I'm not your enemy, help me.
Yes, absolutely, James. I couldn't agree with you more. So you know me, I'm a summarizer, and I
All
heard
right, all right.
what I want to say is the solution seems so complicated for putting that community quilt together, for putting that country quilt together, and we know those threads, different shapes, different thicknesses, different colors make that quilt stronger. And you know, I expected, some people might expect a really complicated answer, but in a way, you gave us a really simple answer, but it's not so easy to execute this answer because it requires, and I'm just kind of repeating what you said, that we have a spirit of learning. We learn from each other. We have a spirit of respect. I respect you as a human being. And thirdly, you said, even if we don't agree on everything, we're first and foremost brothers and sisters in humanity.
Right.
And if we can respect and learn, then it's okay that we don't agree on everything. I always like to say, kids don't always agree with their parents, especially when they're under 18. Sorry, kids. Spouses don't always agree.
That's right.
Brothers and sisters don't always agree. But that disagreement, not a four-letter word, not literally either, but it equals opportunity to do what you said, learn.
You know, two things. That's why your podcast is so powerful, is so great, because you're trying to do that. You're trying to do that very thing. And so when you're looking at people that may disagree with you, one of the things I always think about is that, how do I, even though I disagree with you, how do I still maintain the relationship? I don't
Yes.
want to lose a relationship.
Right.
Because people think, if I say yes, you say no, then we just part and walk away. But no, we can still do that. But the relationship that I have with you is still worth me maintaining.
Yeah.
So I want to do that. So, okay, maybe I'll give a little bit. Maybe, I'll listen. But it's all about trying to maintain a relationship. And that's why what you do here and what you're doing at the table, bringing folks from different voices and background, and people are hearing this and echoing in the universe. I mean, I'm so proud of you, and you've done so much good work throughout your whole life. And I'm really humbled once again to be at the table with Tom Pod.
Yeah. Thank you, James. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show today. And I'd like to just summarize a couple things, if you don't
Okay.
mind. I hope this isn't awkward for you, but I feel a genuine sense of needing to share this, that your story is one of a life well lived. And I think you've inspired and motivated us all to embrace opportunities we have to make a difference where we are right now, where we're planted, blooming in your own words, that we need to seize those opportunities to make a positive contribution and giving back and serving families, friends, community, the broader country. I mean, we're all in that life quilt. And that love for others, I think that you have learning and respect. And even if we don't agree on everything, that's the recipe that I think we're looking for creating positivity and caring among each other. I think, James, you've truly made an impact in the sea of life. And most importantly, I think the ripple from the impact of your efforts is going to touch a lot of shores, my friend. And I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed myself. And once again, thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure, James. And I couldn't have had a better guest the first time that I interviewed someone. So it's only fitting, I think, that we kicked it off this way. But
You're too kind.
yeah, I'd like to encourage you the way that I normally do in my closing comments. Before I do that, though, I'll remind you that you can leave comments on Spotify down below or on my Instagram page of the same name. I'd like to leave you with my usual parting words. And I think this goes very well with what we talked about today, because I want to encourage you to be the positive light for someone else's day with an encouraging word, an appropriate hug, or a cup of coffee. Remember, the impact created by one stone eventually touches all shores as it spreads outward. Be that person that creates the impact in the water and the lives of others, whether it's at home, work, the gym, or whatever circles you find yourself in. Thank you for listening. Thank you, James, for being our guest today, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.